Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. And as I look at my broadcast screen, I can see that my microphone is a little low. That should help it. Joining me today, as he does every other Tuesday, Craig SeLuz, fresh off his broadcast of The Rundown. Craig, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Well, let's go ahead and get started with, as I usually do, I want to tell everybody, if you're watching on the Polite Society Facebook, Polite Society Podcast, Facebook, or YouTube channels, go ahead and comment on those live videos to get your comments on the air. If you're watching anywhere else, on Getter, on Rumble, on OpsLens, if you're watching anywhere else, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. Want to lead off today, Craig, with a press release from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. That's SAF's sister organization. The Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms today is calling on Congress to block funding for the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in the fiscal year 2024 budget until Democrats and federal bureaucrats publicly recognize Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens and stop their attacks on legal gun ownership. CCR-KBA issued its call to eliminate funding as the U.S. House Oversight and Accountability Committee is preparing for a hearing Thursday on the ATF's assault on the Second Amendment. When is enough enough? That hearing is scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. Thursday in the House Rayburn Office building. This is a quote from Alan Gottlieb, my boss. "We've seen attacks on the Second Amendment rights under previous Democrat presidents, but the Biden administration has pulled out all the stops. Joe Biden has publicly declared his desire to ban modern semi-automatic rifles and 9mm pistols, the most popular firearms in the nation. Millions of honest citizens own semi-automatic rifles for all kinds of uses, including home defense, competition, predator control, recreational shooting, and hunting, and they have never harmed anyone. Likewise, millions of men and women own 9mm pistols for personal and home protection, training, target shooting, competition, business protection, and other legitimate uses. But under Joe Biden, the ATF has been weaponized against law-abiding citizens, and its budget proposal includes $1.9 billion for the agency to expand operations and increase regulation of the firearms industry. Clearly," Gottlieb said, "Biden and the Democrats have decided that American gun owners are their enemy. They are scrambling to restrict the Second Amendment rights of tens of millions of citizens whose only offense is they want to exercise their right to keep and bear arms." Last week, the president signed an executive order to create even more restrictions. Where does this stop? The only way to derail this obsession is for House and Senate Republicans to send a message to the White House and Capitol Hill Democrats by refusing to fund the agency Biden wants to unleash on law-abiding Americans. This war on the Second Amendment must stop now. Craig, this is a unique way to go about this, as everybody who is approximately our age or older knows. I think they stopped teaching civics right after we got out of school, but the House controls the purse strings of the government. And the House gets to say what gets funded. This is a great approach by the Citizens Committee to say to the Republican-controlled House, look, this is wrong. You know it's wrong. Pull the purse string, control the purse strings like you have the constitutional ability to do, and stop this.
Well, exactly. This is utilizing government the way in which it was designed, and this is basically, our form of government was designed to have checks on one another. As you know, one of the advantages of the legislative branches, you have both in the Senate, you have the ability to confirm appointments made by the administration, but in the House, you have the ability to control the purse strings, and those powers were given separately in the event that, once again, one of those houses had overstepped or was controlled by the other party, and you couldn't you couldn't really get them to actually do what they needed to do in order to hold them in check. And what we see happening here is we have an administration that, first of all, hired an activist, not an administrator. They hired an activist whose goal it is to restrict our fundamental right to keep and bear arms. And he is doing everything that he can within that agency at the direct behest of the president. Well, guess what? They have an opportunity to put the kibosh on that, to say, no, we're not going to allow you to do that, and we're going to basically defund you until you decide that you're going to do what your actual job is, which is enforcing the law, not trying to rewrite the law or take away fundamental rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is, I believe it's Thomas Massey that put forward a bill in the House to totally eliminate the ATF, which I think would be a beautiful thing. It has zero chance, but would be a beautiful thing. The key here is the difference between Massey's bill and this is the House can do this, and there's nothing the Senate or the President can do about it. The House can say, look, ATF's budget is zero. Not, or even better, the ATF's budget is $1. And give it a actual amount and $1 and let's see what they can do with that $1. How many agents they can keep, including the guy running the show.
Well, there you go. I think that sounds simple enough. It's sad though that we have to fight our own government. The bureaucratic and administrative state has become Democrats or them themselves make a branch of government, and it was never meant to be that way. That's not what the founders wanted. They didn't want unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, and that's at second level, just below the political appointees. They're the ones who, they're the ones who, they all hang out together. From the Ivy League, from the Ivy League social justice universities, and pushing things once again that they believe, because they believe they know better than do the average people how to live their lives.
Oh, and that's really the characterization of liberalism is, I am smart, you are not. I know better than you what is good for you. So here's where I will disagree with you. Not classical. Classical liberalism is, I bring my ideas to the table, you bring your ideas to the table, we debate it, and then that becomes policy. This is more of a Marxist, postmodernist move towards the idea that we have to control you. That it's up to a group of experts, people who are educated and know more than you do, in order to tell you how to live your life. The problem with the left in our society is that too often they are willing to give up their rights, to give up their liberties in order to be a part of the collective, except for some of the rights that are very, very important to them. And quite frankly, what they don't realize is that once you start giving up rights, once you start giving up rights to the government bureaucracy, to the government bureaucrats, they don't just stop at the ones you don't really care about. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Let's excuse me. We get up a comment here, and 500 Magnum. He's got his crystal ball working. He knows what our next topic is. He says the handgun roster in California has been found unconstitutional, and 80%ers too. This is awesome. That does kind of dovetail into, I found a story on Reuters. A federal judge on Monday blocked California from enforcing a state law requiring new semi-automatic handguns to have certain safety features, finding it violates the right to bear arms under the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The ruling by U.S. District Judge Cormac Carney in Santa Ana is the latest in a line of decisions striking down state gun laws following a U.S. Supreme Court ruling last year expanding gun rights. The judge said it would not take effect for 14 days to give the state a chance to appeal. And I want to get to the very end of the story. There's a quote from Chuck Michelle. He's California Rifle and Pistol Association president. If we can hold on to this great Second Amendment win, people will be able to choose from among thousands of the latest, greatest, and safest handguns made today. Let's talk about that decision. And first of all, no, you cannot go out and buy a Gen 5 Glock today in California. The ruling is on hold for 14 days until the state has a chance to appeal. But it is coming, Craig. It is coming. What's your thoughts?
So to give your viewers a little bit of history, in 2001, there was this thing that was sold as the quote-unquote not unsafe handgun roster. And the idea, well, first of all, in California, liberal politicians could never bring themselves to actually call a handgun safe. So they just say, oh, it's not unsafe. But the idea was to make sure that junk guns were not, were safe. And the idea was, okay, well, I'll tell you what, you got to submit your you got to submit one of the firearms. You got to submit a $200 fee, and they're going to test it and make sure that it's safe. So it was really about consumer safety. Now the problem was that every firearm that was submitted after that, I have yet to hear of any firearm that did not pass the safety test that they utilized. Well, then in 2006, they passed legislation that added features. Right? In other words, these were supposed to be features that made the firearm safer. One was a loaded chamber indicator, basically a little button that pops out if there is a round in the chamber, as well as a magazine release. What do they call it?
Disconnect.
Safety. So disconnect. So what it would happen is if you eject the magazine, then the firearm won't fire. Right? Even if there's a round in the chamber. And the whole point of the two was, well, we're just trying to make it safe so that people don't accidentally shoot people, right? If the in the event, thinking that the gun is unloaded, and that was really kind of the test balloon. Once they got that through the legislature, we saw a significant decrease in the number of semi-automatic handguns that were available for sale in California, because a lot of manufacturers were not going to add those features just to be able to sell a firearm in California. Well, then right after that, they came back with microstamping. Now, microstamping is where you basically, utilizing the firing pin, you put the serial number on each cartridge so that when it's ejected, if they're found at the scene, they can look at it and they know who the owner of the firearm is, who the gun belonged to that was used in the shooting. Now, there's a few problems with this. Number one, it became very clear that all one needed was a fingernail file in 3 minutes, and, you could undo that. And that was, by the way, if you didn't even bother to just, change out the firing pin, put in a new firing pin, maybe, put in someone else's firing pin so that you could frame somebody for shooting people. Yeah. Or even, how about this? How about collecting all your brass and throwing their brass down on the ground, once again, as a way in which to frame people? But then there was just technologically, there was this other problem, because this bill didn't require it in just one place. It required it to be printed in 2 places. Now, this technology, the ability to do it in 2 places, did not exist. It was at least a few years, I think it was 2009, when they finally finalized the technology to be able to do it in 1 place. And that was when, was it 2009 or 2000? Anyway, Kamala Harris, our current vice president, she was attorney general here in California at the time, and decided, we're going to go ahead and prove it. The technology exists. Never bothered to realize that it didn't exist in 2 places, where you could do it in 2 places, which basically meant, because the technology didn't exist and still doesn't exist to do that, that in essence in California, you have not been able to purchase a new model a semi-automatic handgun in the state of California since about, I want to say 2000 or 2013 for sure. It was significantly reduced in 2007. Well, that in essence was a ban on new model semi-automatic handguns in the state of California. Yeah. And that's why it got overturned, because it turned into a ban. And then, I got an even better one for you. So what the Department of Justice started doing was, if you changed the spring, if you changed the trigger, right, in the firearm, if you changed who you got it from, that was considered a new model firearm and had to go through the process all over again. So it was now a new model handgun. Even though it was the same exact thing, you just changed who you got your springs from. The goal of this whole thing was to ban semi-automatic handguns without banning them.
Yeah, it was. And up until this ruling, it was largely successful because the list of handguns that can be bought in California is rather small. I expect California to appeal this, and then I expect the Ninth Circuit to probably, post Bruin, and with the current makeup of the Ninth Circuit, it'll probably get held. The ban will be upheld in a 3-judge panel, then go en banc, and then it's anybody's guess what happens.
Well, if the decision has a chance of getting upheld. If it goes en banc, and here's the thing, if the decision gets upheld by this district court judge, then it will for sure go en banc. If it goes en banc, they're going to basically reinstitute the ban, and then it'll have to go to the Supreme Court. That's just kind of the way things kind of go around here in California, in the Ninth Circuit. Every decision, if we were to lose at the 3-judge panel, we will not be granted en banc. Mm-hmm. So it's almost better to lose at that stage, because then you skip a step and you can go straight to the Supreme Court. But en banc, it's kind of funny because it always winds up being almost the same judges, and they almost always wind up deciding against us. And oh, by the way, here's another interesting thing about this whole roster thing. So law enforcement is exempt, right? So you've seen over the years stories about members of law enforcement being arrested for gun trafficking. Well, what they've been doing is this. They're able to buy, for example, a Gen 5 or a Gen 4 Glock. Then they can turn around and they sell it to an individual, because you can still do private party transfers. So if I have a firearm that's not on the roster, I can still sell it. So let's say you lived out of state when you bought it, and you moved into the state, you can still own it and you can still sell it. If you're law enforcement or former law enforcement, or retired law enforcement, you have a firearm, you can still sell it. The problem is that if you buy it, purchase it with the intent to sell it, that then makes you a firearms retailer, and you can't do that without a license. If you sell more than 5 firearms in a given year, that then makes you a firearms retailer, and once again requires a certain license in order for you to be able to do that. But it actually created a significant black market for these firearms, which are legal to own, legal to possess. You just can't buy them from an FFL.
Yeah. You get a comment in here real quick. Gun website says, but they could just make all those things Craig talked about illegal. Swapping pins, switching brass, and then microstamping would work. Come on, man.
You should have put a winky eye emoji in that one. Because passing laws keeps people from breaking laws. I know that's how they think. If we just pass another law, we make it illegaler. More illegal. I like illegaler better, because it just goes to show how stupid some of their ideas are.
Let's stay in California, and this one off Bearing Arms caught my attention today. The city of Santa Monica is the latest California locale to respond to the Supreme Court's decision in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin ruling by jacking up the cost to apply for a concealed carry license. And now the California Rifle and Pistol Association is warning city council members, if they don't reverse course, they could soon be facing a lawsuit. I'm going to read the warning letter sent by Costas Moros, who's the California Rifle and Pistol Association attorney. Under the fees approved by the City Council last Tuesday, Santa Monica residents will pay $617 plus $150 for a psychological exam for a license. The total amount is $617 more than residents paid the LA County Sheriff's Department, which charged a total of $150 and required no psychological testing before they stopped processing fees for the city. Council also set the renewal fee at $150, 5 times more than the $30 charged by the Sheriff's Department. Charging $767, not including your training course, for the exercise of a constitutional right is not acceptable, Konstantinos Moros said. In his warning, Moros included a copy of a letter he sent to the city of Laverne threatening a lawsuit over the same fees Santa Monica would unanimously approve. By charging such outlandish fees, the city is pushing the very people who are law-abiding and respectful of the process, he wrote. You are encouraging them to give up, and if they still must carry for their own safety, to do so illegally. And I think Moros has a great point there. They want to make the common citizen an outlaw. They want to push it to where the common guy cannot carry, and if he's caught with a firearm, will go to jail. That's honestly what I think both these cities want.
Well, it is, and ultimately, it's not even that. It's not so much that they want to send them to jail. What they want to do is they want to strip them of their right to be able to even own or possess a firearm, because that's what they're going to do. They'll wind up taking. Okay, tell you what, we'll give you a plea deal. We'll call it time served, but you give up your fundamental. You give up your right to keep and bear arms. You give up your guns. And that's what they're going to wind up doing, because you're not going to have people. You're going to people. And once again, if these are folks who couldn't afford the, almost $1,000 in order to get a permit, and the and the $700 every 2 years to, I think it was about $700 every 2 years to renew your license.
It was
your
$150
permit
for renewal, but yeah.
All right. Well, $150 for renewal, plus you're going to have to take a class. So you're probably looking somewhere about $300 every 2 years for your renewal. If you can't afford that, then your only choice, you have two choices. You either don't carry or you don't defend yourself. You give up your right to defend yourself outside of your home, or you carry illegally. Those are your two choices. Yeah. And if you carry illegally and you get caught, well, now we can strip you of all your guns. We can strip you of all your rights. So, and the people who are put in line, are poor people. The average person, poor people. Now, if you're rich, if you're wealthy, you can afford this. This is not a big deal for you.
Well, and let's, if a criminal is busted, this is a plea down. Bargaining chip is all this is. Right now you could be put in jail for a year for this, but if you plead to this other thing, we'll take this one off. That's all it is. And it's not even a really good bargaining chip.
Yeah, and
it certainly won't stop gangs from carrying without a permit.
Oh, no. The people who we don't want carrying guns will still continue to carry firearms. Mm-hmm. And all this does is reduce the likelihood that'll happen. Now, mind you, keep in mind, this city can always do like other major cities do, and they can contract with the county, and the county can provide the service at the cost that the county's already doing it. The county's already only charging $150. Why does the city need that much money? There's no reason. If the county can do it, and they can make it easier and simpler for their residents by simply allowing the county to do it, there's only one reason for them to charge that exorbitant amount, and that is a modern day poll tax.
Yeah, it is. And the reason the city is one of the reasons given by the city in another article I read is it takes 10 hours for our deputies, 10 working hours for our deputies to do everything needed for this. Why? Background shit. The NICS system comes back within an hour, and unless your deputy is
well,
just
the average background check for NICS, the average NICS background check is about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
average.
Yeah. So background check comes back clean. What else is there? I mean, under Bruin, seriously, what else is there that you can do to? It's a few more keystrokes on a keyboard. Uh,
It's all BS, and is what it is. It's a lot. Once again, their goal is to make it cost prohibitive for individuals to be able to carry a firearm outside of their home. I'm surprised they didn't include an insurance requirement in it.
yeah, absolutely. That was. Oh, what county was that? That was
San Jose,
San Jose.
and
Yeah,
that was just to own a gun. That wasn't
yeah.
even to carry. That was just to own a firearm. They have instituted an insurance requirement. That, by the way, it doesn't cover anything that you would want it to, that they would want, that they want it to cover.
Well, yeah, and not only that, I don't think those. I read an article. This has been a couple 3 weeks back now, because I'm pretty sure it was before I went to the Virgin Islands. But read an article that they're not enforcing that because yeah, there isn't really a insurance policy that does what they want it to do, and so yeah, it's they're making that's a city, so they're making ordinances they cannot enforce. But anyway,
Right. Well, that, by the way, is why the insurance law got shot down in the state of California at the state level, because all of the major insurance companies told the state, yeah, we don't provide insurance for that. You cannot buy insurance to protect you against a criminal act.
yep, that's exactly insurance. By definition, will never pay for a criminal act. That they just that's against federal regulations.
Right.
Last story I got here, and this one is just humorous off Huffington Post. Yes, I read Huffington Post. Oregon voters handed gun reformers a major victory when they backed a ballot measure creating one of the country's most stringent systems for buying and selling firearms in 2022. New gun purchases require approval from local law enforcement, a rule common in Europe but almost unheard of in the United States. Measure 114 banned both semi-automatic assault rifles and magazines holding more than 5 rounds. However, they write, it was a fleeting triumph. The next month, a state judge barred the law from going into effect. Parallel legal challenges are also working their way through the federal courts. And I'm going to stop there. The article goes on and on, lists not just in Oregon, but California and Washington and other places where laws are getting shot down because of Bruin. And this is really a huge, the sky is falling article. And I put it up here simply because, Craig, we are winning. And the Huffington Post article says, you know, the where gun restrictions were winning is in local jurisdictions, in state and local jurisdictions. And now with this Bruin decision, our hands are tied and we're losing. Craig, that's good news, man.
Well, because they're losing now because they were winning cases they never should have been allowed to win. Keep in mind that one of the things that Bruin did was it overturned this made-up method of evaluating these cases called scrutiny, right? Levels of scrutiny, where in essence you had judges making up in their own minds whether or not, well, this is important enough, and the state has such a compelling reason that they get to violate your rights. And that wasn't something that's in the Constitution. It's not something that was passed by law. It's not something that came out of a Supreme Court ruling. It happened in one ruling, and it was a part of a footnote. And the anti-gunners just took it and ran with it. And they would treat the Second Amendment like the redheaded stepchild of constitutional amendments. If you Amendment case, that's strictly You can't violate the rights unless you have a really, 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 really good reason. You've demonstrated there's no other way or no lesser way to do that without violating the rights. But what they kept looking at Second Amendment cases, they start off using rational basis, which basically means you can make up whatever reason you want, or in this case, even the judge can just make up whatever reason they want to say this is a good reason for them to have this law, therefore your constitutional rights are null and void. I mean, literally, that is how judges were making decisions on these cases. They can't do that anymore, and they don't like it. But the people who had the ability, one of the groups that had the ability to actually make sure that this was done right, the Supreme Court, they're the ones that actually chimed in on it. Now, You don't like it? Tell you what, get Congress to pass a law. You don't like it? Get the Constitution amended. Until then, anti-gunners, sit down, shut up, take your lumps.
Absolutely. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, man. If I could, tell everybody about the rundown, tell everybody about Morning Coffee with Craig and how they can get more with Craig SeLuz.
All right, the rundown, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. We talk about 2A news and conservative views. So we don't just talk guns and gun policy. We also talk conservative politics and issues at the state and national level. You can find that. If you want to find out where to find us, just go to therundown.us, and you'll find us right there. We're also on OpsLens. We're also on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Then there's Morning Coffee with Craig. That's 2 times a week. And you can find us on YouTube primarily, youtube.com/gun policy, or just look up the Firearms Policy Coalition, and you'll find me there.
Very cool. And I want to put up, I'm going to put my face off the screen, put you back up. I think the only California compliant thing you have there is that crossbow that's just off your right shoulder. I think everything else there might be sending California legislators into panic mode right about now.
That's why I love it, sir. That's why I love it. I want to send them into a drastic panic.
Yeah. We're good. We got to get out of here. We're almost to the mark where I won't be able to push this tomorrow through OpsLens. Everybody, thanks for watching. Please do come join me tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time, for another version of The Bullet. Thanks for watching, everybody.